In the heart of Wyoming's wild country, where the mountains breathe and every sound could mean survival or death, one father and son came closer to dying than they ever thought possible. It wasn't a storm or a fall or even the hunt itself. It was something older, stronger, waiting. This is the story of Vince and Garrett Kalkowski, a father and son who found themselves face to face with one of nature's most fearsome predators and lived to tell about it.
Hit like and subscribe. This is Fierce.
October 3rd, east of Meeteetse, Wyoming. The Kalkowskis and their friends were deep in the wilderness, 7 hunters in all, each chasing a memory, a bull, a moment of pride. That morning, one of the group's daughters took her first bull elk. The celebration echoed through the canyon. While the others helped her process the animal, Vince and his 21-year-old son Garrett decided to keep hunting. They tied up their mules and began the long climb toward a narrow drainage, a place where cliffs hugged tight on both sides, the kind of country that tests your lungs and your luck. At the tree line, they spotted movement, a bull elk slipping into thick timber. Vince motioned to his son, and the two climbed higher, staying silent. The ridge was narrow, steep on both sides, the kind of place where a misstep meant a freefall. 15 yards ahead, the bull stood between the shadows, invisible but near enough to feel. Then, a snap, branches breaking somewhere ahead. Vince's hunter instincts flared. Elk, he thought, but the sound wasn't right. It wasn't cautious or rhythmic like hooves. It was heavy, erratic, angry. Garrett lifted his phone to take a photo of the scenery, and that's when Vince saw it. A flash of brown, a blur of motion, a grizzly bear, charging through the trees at full speed. In that instant, the world seemed to freeze. It was like watching a movie, Vince later recalled. Only this time, we were the ones on screen. The bear came straight for Garrett, a wall of fur and rage exploding through the timber, only yards away. Vince's mind flashed an image he'll never forget. His son on the ground, the bear tearing into him, and himself standing helplessly above. But before fear could take root, Garrett moved. He didn't hesitate. He didn't scream. He drew his 10mm Glock and fired. The bear was 5 yards away when the first round hit, then another and another. 4 rapid shots, so fast they sounded like one. The bear stumbled, turned left, and slammed into a fallen log. Vince shouted, "Don't stop shooting!" Garrett emptied the rest of his magazine. 11 more rounds, his hands steady, his mind locked in survival. Later, he said his body was pure adrenaline. "I wasn't scared," he told his dad afterward. "I was in attack mode, and I was going to win." When the gunfire stopped, the world went eerily silent. The bear lay motionless beside the log. Then, with a groan that made their blood run cold, it began to move again. He had just enough life left in him, Vince said, to get back on his feet. The grizzly stumbled into the trees and disappeared. Neither man could breathe. They could hear it, heavy, labored breathing somewhere down the slope, deep in the brush. They didn't know if it was dying or waiting. The only way back to camp was the way they came, right past the spot where the bear vanished. Down the ridge, about 500 yards away, another member of their hunting party heard the shots echo. Vince grabbed his handheld satellite communicator, a Garmin inReach with just enough text capacity for a few short messages. He sent one to his group. "We're fine. Grizzly charged. Garrett killed it." Then one to his wife back home. He didn't sugarcoat it. "We got charged by a grizzly bear. Garrett saved our lives." Back at camp, their friends immediately contacted the Wyoming Game and Fish Department. Within hours, wardens and investigators were en route to the site. When the officers arrived, Vince led them back to the ridge. The air was still thick with pine and adrenaline. "I told them," he recalled, "I wish I could tell you for sure that the bear's dead, but I can't." "You won't know it's dead," Vince warned, "until you stick your head right in there." They did. The bear was found only a few yards from where it had vanished, a massive grizzly weighing more than 600 pounds. It had taken 15 bullets to stop it. Even mortally wounded, it had fought to its last breath. For Vince Kalkowski, a chiropractor, hunter, and father, the encounter changed everything. He'd hunted for over 20 years without incident, but this was different. "You can't understand what it's like," he said, "until you see a grizzly charging your child." Garrett had been hunting since he was 12. His first bull elk came with a .270 rifle. Small frame, big dreams. Now at 21, he faced a test no hunter should ever have to take, and he passed. Vince said later that bear spray would have been useless. The wind was blowing directly at them. Had they tried to use it, the mist would have blinded them instead. Their survival came down to seconds, to instinct, and to preparation. Under federal law, grizzly bears remain protected species. Killing Killing one is illegal, except in clear self-defense. The investigation confirmed exactly that. Game and Fish officers found the bear less than 10 yards from the attack site, proving that it had charged aggressively before being shot. The Kalkowskis cooperated fully, and officials deemed the shooting justified. Even so, Vince couldn't shake the image: the blur of fur, the sound of his son's gun, the silence after the final shot. He later told interviewers, "If it was a movie, you'd say, yeah, right, that would never happen. But this wasn't a movie. It was real, and it was over in seconds." When you face a predator like that, there's no time to think, no time to talk, only time to act. That's what Garrett did. That's what saved them. The days that followed were quiet. They packed up camp, moved slowly down the mountain, and tried to process what had happened. Back home, the adrenaline faded, replaced by reflection. "Thank God it ended the way it did," Vince said. "Thank God he prepared my son to react exactly how he did." Out here, in the wild heart of Wyoming, the line between life and death can shrink to a breath, or the click of a safety. For Vince and Garrett Kalkowski, it was both. One heartbeat too slow, and they'd be gone. Instead, they became living proof of what happens when instinct meets courage, when training meets timing, when man meets the wild and lives to tell the tale. This was the day a father nearly lost his son, and the day a son became his father's hero.